What's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte. Today we're going to be taking a look, of course, based off of the jersey I'm wearing today. You can't see the whole thing, but today we're taking a look at the Calgary Flames. And the Calgary Flames have had a pretty good start to this season. Things have gone well for them. There was obviously a little stretch in the beginning of the season where you felt, oh no, things are falling off, but they have kind of wrote the ship again. And this is one of the biggest surprises, for me at least, in the season so far. The Calgary Flames right now find themselves at a spot that I don't think most of us really expected. Now, their record doesn't necessarily look the most sexy at 10-9-3, but they are doing a lot better than I think most people would have expected. We're considering them in the category of teams like Calgary, teams like LA, Vegas, Edmonton, Vancouver. They are right in that bunch right now. And it's one of those things where when I'm talking about the Pacific Division in particular, it seems like this division is kind of a toss up. Vegas isn't as dominant as maybe some people may or may not have thought going into the year. The Kings, Oilers, and Canucks, those are all pretty good teams in the in the Western Conference there, but they haven't really. There isn't one team, like I said, that's just dominant. And I think for Calgary, yeah, is it a little bit of a benefit in that sense where the teams in their division aren't taking off like a Winnipeg or maybe a Washington in the East? No, but that's fine because all they have to do is be one of the three best teams in their division and nothing else will matter. So for the Calgary Flames right now, there's a lot of hockey to be played. No doubt about that. They're 20 games into the season of an 82 game schedule. There's still 62 games left. But from what I've seen from this team, it's very promising. And honestly, a lot better than I thought this team was going to be this year. So we're going to take a look at why this team is so successful. The ways they've been winning games has been really impressive. And we'll look at all of that here today. So let's start off with the beginning of the season because I think that was kind of the honestly, yeah, they played well, but like if you look at a lot of these games, they weren't the prettiest wins, especially the first two games of the season. A 6-5 overtime victory over the Canucks in Vancouver. It was one of those things where it wasn't the typical Calgary Flames win we're going to see at least over the last couple of months since then. It was a 6-5 victory. It was back and forth, a lot of goals both ways. And then even the game against the Flyers, their home opener, it was a 6-3 game. So they scored a bunch of goals, but they also gave up a bunch of goals. And I think that was something that when you look back, you're like, yeah, this is great that we're scoring a bunch of goals, but now we have to outscore our opponents, even though we're going to be giving up 3 to 5 goals a game. That's not necessarily a winning formula, right? Ask the Pittsburgh Penguins about that. So from that point on, the next two games in that 4 game winning streak to start the season, it was a 4-1 and a 3-1 victory over the Oilers and the Blackhawks. And these are the games that really are making me not nervous. I mean, I would say optimistic if I'm a Flames fan, but nervous if I'm the rest of the league. The Calgary Flames are playing games where they are giving up in a lot of cases, no goals in a game or 1 or 2 goals, and they're scoring 3, 4, 5 goals in a game. You're going to win a lot of hockey games with that formula, and you're going to see a large pattern of that over this season where they do pretty well I mean, obviously it's easier said than done, right? Obviously when you score more goals than the other team, you're going to win more nights, but it's the way they are defensively and in between the pipes that is really the key to the success of the Calgary Flames this season because this team really yeah, those first 2 games they've scored 6 goals for. Since then they have not scored 5 in a game, let alone 6. They've not scored 5 goals in a game since then. So the first 2 games of the season, lots of goals. That's to be expected early in the season. And now things have definitely settled down, not only for the Flames, but around the league, but they're not giving up a lot of goals, and that's really one of the things here. They're winning a lot of those, specifically over the last couple of weeks. They're winning those games where it's a 2-1. You got to grind one out, a 2-1, 1-0, 3-1 win. They've been winning a lot of those games. So looking at the schedule, The first loss of the season was one of those close 2-1 games in Seattle. That was their first loss of the season. They beat Pittsburgh 4-3 in a shootout. And then they had a little stretch here. They had that 4-game losing streak where we were kind of holding on to the brakes saying, uh-oh, maybe the Flames are going to be more of that team, like bottom 5 in the standings like we kind of expected. This is where that's going to show up. It did look like it for a little bit. They gave up 19 goals in 4 games, which basically is 5 goals per game, right around that mark. 4 goals in the first game against Carolina, 5 against the Jets, 5 against Vegas, and then 5 against Utah. So we were sitting there saying, whoa, hold on now. This is far from what they were doing in the first 2 weeks of the season. Now things are falling off. And then they came back and were really resilient. A 3-0 win over the Devils. That was the first shutout of the season for the Flames. Again, another loss. They lose to the Oilers 4-2, but then they're resilient again. They get a win over the Montreal Canadiens. They lose 2 more games after that in overtime and a shootout. And now they have won 3 of their past 4 games since the LA Kings game. So their most recent victories, a 3-1 win over the Kings, 2-0 shutout victory over the Preds, and a 2-1 shootout victory over the New York Islanders. And that's why I'm talking about the Flames. I gotta be honest, I'm an Islanders fan. I watch the Islanders a lot more than most teams. And when I'm watching the Flames in that game, I was quite impressed with what I've seen from the Calgary Flames. And they're gonna have the Rangers come into town tonight, which is gonna be a big game. But I have to say, like, this is a good test for them this week. They play the Rangers, they play the Wild this weekend, which that's going to be a great game. And then they head for a little East Coast road trip, and most of that grouping doesn't look that great. That's the Eastern Conference swing of mediocrity. Ottawa, Detroit, Columbus, and Pittsburgh. All 4 of those games, very winnable for the Calgary Flames. If they could very easily go 3-4 on that road trip, if not even 4 for 4. But realistically, if they go 3-4 on that road trip, I think that would be a pretty sound road trip for the Calgary Flames. And then now you come into December after American Thanksgiving, and things kind of pick up from there because they play a couple of pretty tough opponents. Tampa, Florida, Boston, Dallas. There's a couple of pretty good tests for the Calgary Flames to start the month of December. But with that said, you know, they're winning the games they're supposed to win. And what I think is really exciting, we're going to get to this now, looking at their goals against this season is top 10 in the NHL, which that is obviously huge. And we remember under the Daryl Sutter era of the Calgary Flames, they were so defensive minded. They didn't score a bunch of goals, but they were able to score enough and winning those 2-1, 3-1 games, and that's where they found success, and that's where they're doing it now. Maybe a little bit of a different style, not with Daryl Sutter there, but this is a very similar, when you look at the scores, it's a very similar theme, is when we give up 1 or 2 goals a game, we are going to win most of those games, and we could just score enough to score that 3rd or 4th goal to find a way to win. And when you look at the point producers, it's kind of all over the place for the Calgary Flames, but toward the top, it's the guys you would expect. Rasmus Anderson with 12 points this season, 10 points for Kadri. Same thing for Huberdeau, Backlund, Kuzmenko, Coleman, Connor Zary, Weegar, Coronado, all those guys. The guys you would expect to be there, that's where they are in the top 10 of the team's point leaders. You know, it's been really nice to see Ryan Lomberg. Yeah, he's not putting in a ton of points, but obviously his agitative side of the game has shown up on a couple of occasions early on this season. He's got some good fight highlights in the Flames jersey already. You know, this is a team that we have to remember. There's a lot of young guys on this team, and you know, Connor Zary being one of them, Coronado. I would say Kevin Ball is still fairly young. You know, Martin Poisbil, Maramanov, Sharon Govich is still young. Braden Pakal, I'm really excited to see him develop because this is a guy that I think they're going to see a nice future with him in the top 4 of the Calgary Flames blue line. He's going to be a good defenseman for them. And then, like I said, goalie-wise, I mean, Dustin Wolf, probably in the conversation for the Vezina right now. And I know that's something maybe people don't want to think about, but he's got a .925 save percentage right now, 2.36 goals against average. He's doing something right. And for the Calgary Flames right now, this is a team that is really way above expectations, in my opinion. And that's give credit where it's due here to Ryan Huska and the coaching staff. That's a situation that is not easy to come into. With everything that's gone on in Calgary the past couple of years, the amount of turnover, the amount of guys that have left, and things like that, this team's done a fairly good job so far in this sort of rebuild. And we've seen teams really struggle in rebuilds, being in rebuilds for a decade or two, and not being able to get back to where maybe Calgary already is at. Now, maybe this is fool's gold. And like I said, 20 games into the year, there's still 62 games left for the Calgary Flames to screw the pooch on this one. But as of right now, I gotta say, the Calgary Flames look like a team that if they play the way they've been playing, when things maybe get a little tougher, they face a little more adversity, they have a lot of potential to make some noise, potentially making it to the playoffs. And like I said, a lot of young guys on this group. A lot of young guys, and I think that blend of the veterans that they've acquired in Huberdeau and Coleman and Backlund and Kadri over the years has allowed them to have a little bit of depth behind some of the younger players that they have on this team. And that is a solid defense. I think that defense is really the story of this team early on. The defense and the goaltending is kind of the standout thing for the Flames so far this year. But I want to know what you guys think down below. Do you guys think the Calgary Flames could legitimately make the playoffs this year in 2024 or 2025? We're already talking about 2025 now. Yeah, because honestly, the way they're playing right now, it is possible. And, you know, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to see a pretty good sample against teams, like I said, the Rangers and the Wild this week. They play Tampa, Florida in December. They're going to have some games where you're going to be saying to yourself, like, they're beating some pretty good teams. These are good tests for them. And at the end of the day, to make the playoffs, you have to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. The teams lower in the standings, like the Islanders, you know, and then you have toss-up games like against Vancouver or Minnesota and the Rangers this week. You have to win 50-50 on those, and you have to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And Calgary's kind of had that formula so far. They find themselves second in the Pacific Division, which I didn't necessarily think I would be saying at this point, probably not even 2 months ago. Being ahead of teams like Edmonton, Vancouver, LA, even teams like Utah, Seattle, Anaheim. I really didn't think they would be this far up in the standings, so give credit to Matt Huska and the rest of that group there, Ryan Huska, and that staff there in Calgary. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you again next time. Peace.